When the term is a computer-generated character, there's the impression that the computer's creating the character. The computer's not creating anything. The computer is doing the number crunching to generate an image. The character is being created by the actor. It's not animation, it's a performance capture. We've talked about low-budget filmmaking. Now we're going to talk about the opposite end of the spectrum. In Avatar, it was a highly experimental production. So one of the things that's unique about it is that we went into it starting years before the release. We started in 2005 and the film came out in late 2009. Not knowing exactly how we were going to solve most of the problems. We had a general idea of how to do things. We're pretty thin on specifics. And I had actually written Avatar in 1995 as a challenge to my digital effects company, Digital Domain. And they said, we can't do it yet. We don't have the tools to do the muscle rigs and the facial muscle rigs and the eyes and the hands, and we can't do it. It's too much. It's beyond us right now. I said, all right, I'll just put it in a shelf for a few years. And I waited and I waited and I waited. And then I was watching The Two Towers. And there's the scene where Gollum talks to himself. And he's in two places at once. And he's having this kind of schizophrenic out-of-body experience. And it's highly expressive, highly emotional, goes on for several minutes. And it's a 100% CG character. And I said to myself, if they can do that, I can make Avatar. And that's what set me down the path of making the movie. So I was inspired by the work of another filmmaker. I was building on what Peter Jackson had done and what Weta Digital had already done. So I came in with a whole new set of challenges and a new high bar that they had to get through, and they loved that. They loved that challenge. We just studied a lot of close-ups, really big close-ups of men and women, and looked at them in different kinds of lighting and said, well, what do you see? What do you see about the way they move? What do you see about the way they take the light? What do you see about the skin pores? What do you see about the eye? You know, and one of the breakthroughs was the eye is not dry, the eye is wet. It's kind of obvious. But it also means that the upper part of the lower eyelid is actually a wet surface. And there's a little meniscus of tear fluid between that eyelid and between the eyeball. And it catches the light. And there's a little glint there, and it's always there. But if you're not looking for it, you'll never see it. The second we put the meniscus in, the eye came to life. I know, it sounds like a little tiny thing. It's a thing you'd never think about, but when it's missing, you sense the lack. And I always felt that CG characters fell down around the movement of the mouth. It always felt mask-like. It always felt sort of too thin at the corner of the mouth and not interacting properly with the teeth. It didn't feel like those muscles really exist, like the dimensionality of the mouth and the face really existed. So we spent literally a couple of years figuring out how to do this with Weta Digital. And Weta Digital did the heavy lifting on this. And it was iteration after iteration after iteration and coming up with little things. So the most critical thing about all visual effects, and certainly any kind of CG character design, and especially if you're trying to emulate photoreality, is to observe. Observe, observe, observe. In a nutshell, the methodology was that we're going to capture the performance using a collection of data. The idea of motion capture, where we capture the body movement of a character, had been around. I used it on Titanic for some of the crowd scenes. So that had been around for a while. It had been around for at least 10 years. The idea of how you were going to capture the specifics of a facial performance, which is where you see the majority of the emotion in the eyes, the mouth, all the many, many muscles in the face. So it's almost its own separate world from the full body performance. People that had tried to do this in the past tried to do it by using markers that they put on the face and capturing the face the same way they captured the body, with a bunch of motion capture cameras in a big array around it. But the detail wasn't fine enough. They could only work in very small volumes. It really limited the action. It limited how they were going to, the type of action that they could stage. So, and you had to literally glue like 80 little tiny glass bead balls onto the actor's face. It was horrible. Actors didn't like it. The end result wasn't that great. So we proposed a completely different solution, which is to take something that looked like a lot like a boom mic for a singer in a concert and put a little tiny video camera out on the end of it on a pretty wide lens and shoot the face, film the face or video the face while the actor's doing the scene. And it's nulled out to them. It stays with them wherever they go. And it's getting a 100% recording, a close-up recording of their performance, their facial performance. So now you've got a video data stream coming out of the face, and we called that image-based facial performance capture, right? And that set a trend that's still in motion to this day. A lot of other people have used it. Different people have brought different refinements to the process, but it hasn't fundamentally changed since 2005 when we first launched the concept. So now you have two data streams that are recording the actor's performance. You're getting the body performance off a standard motion capture system with a lot of really tricky bells and whistles on it to make it better. And you're getting the facial performance from this little camera that's on this little camera boom. Here's me with my virtual camera on Avatar. And I'm working with the actors in their capture suits. You can see that they have marker suits. We're just in a big lit stage. There's no jungle there whatsoever. They're running on a log. So I think these are probably more stunt doubles than anything. And they're running on a log. They're just running basically across the floor. It's very safe. And I'm not looking at them with the camera. I'm looking at the characters that they're playing in real time, in the world, in the CG world. All at low resolution, almost looks like an old crappy video game from the 80s.
And 6, and 7, and 8.
We're much better at it these days than we were. This is all, obviously 11 years old. Here's me, and once again, I'm not looking at them, I'm looking at my image, but I'm near them so I can talk to them, and I'm seeing what they look like in the world, and then here's me playing back, and what I'm seeing is they're up on what we call a vine bridge in between two floating mountains, and they're 1,000 feet above the ground. But of course, because the characters are very mountain goat-like and can run around 1,000 feet above the ground, it was okay for them to not be scared and balancing and wobbling along, and it was completely safe. And so we're creating a fantasy image and using relatively simple setups to do it. And basically we found out that it worked very well. You could do just about anything. You could run, you could jump, you could ride a horse, you could have a big argument, you could even, if you were careful, you could drink a beer, you could do whatever you needed to do. The only thing we couldn't shoot using the system was a kiss, for obvious reasons, because the two booms would be in the way. So we had to use a different kind of harder technique that was more labor intensive to do the kiss scene and a couple of other moments. But for the most part, it worked for, I'd say, 99% of what we were trying to shoot. We had a lot of proof of concept. We spent a fair bit of the studio's money, the studio being 20th Century Fox, to prove that we could do it. And to do that, we did a test. We did a 1.5-minute test, boy meets girl in the jungle, and they talk.
He only come and make problems. Only.
Okay, fine.
Fine. You love your little forest friends. So why not just let them kill my ass? What's the thinking?
Why save?
Yes. Why save?
You not fear. You strong heart.
And it was compelling enough that Fox was willing to pull the trigger on a $200+ million project that then went somewhat over that budget. And it was 3 years later that we had the first shot that really proved that we could do it. So think about that. We had our proof of concept done in 2005. We got the first shot that we could actually use in the movie in 2008. And everything in between was a gigantic leap of faith. And it's easy to look back on it and say, it was all a no-brainer. Come on, the world building, those great designs, all that stuff. Yeah, that's true. World building was a big part of it. This was the most important part because the audience enters the film through the eyes and hearts of the characters. So we had to have the characters. The key for me is if the actor did the performance, we've captured it, it's going to be in the character later. So I'm going to run a little split screen here, where you can see Zoe Saldana in one of her big emotional moments in the film with Sam Worthington. Emotional moment for him too.
I trusted you.
Trust me now, please.
God! God, like you not knock me off, big. You will never be one of the people.
I tried to stop.
Terry, please,
Go
please.
good.
So she's freaking out and it's the end of the relationship. But I think what's interesting here is to look at how closely we were able to capture her expression. It's not perfect because her character is not exactly physiologically identical to her. Her nose is very different, her eyes are very different, her forehead's very different, but her mouth is very similar. And you can see that the performance capture technique captured what she did. It's an actor-driven process. Everything that she does, everything that Sam does translates into the character. And this is what we hoped for. This is what we worked toward. And of course, this is the head rig. And this facial performance is being captured by this camera and by a video feed, a live video feed. We broadcast it off the body to a record deck. So you can see that he blinks, his lips are pulled back in that exact moment, exactly the same way. It maps through frame by frame by frame. And we don't take liberties with this. It took us a long time to figure out how to create the neuromuscular rig, which we now call the algorithm, for Zoe. Because Zoe's face did a lot of things that a lot of people's faces don't do. The way in which her lips would curl out and the tension and the way her lips would thin out over her teeth in a very feral way. It's a very expressive face, and we needed to figure out how to get the pseudo muscles that exist entirely mathematically to do that. And that was our goal, and that's what the technical teams at Weta were able to do. But the hand motion, everything, you can see how it maps frame by frame. And there's absolutely zero compromise in that system. You have to get the performance in the moment. You can't make it better later. There are a couple times where we tried to alter a moment slightly, maybe to have a tiny bit more of a smile or a little bit more fear. It was a horrible failure. It has to be, the actor has to do it. And then it's just up to us to honor it in the downstream pipeline, which takes about a year. From the moment you capture it, you're at least a year away from seeing a shot, which is a thing in and of itself. I don't recommend making a movie like Avatar, but it's good for people to know, even if they're just starting out, what can be done. If you're shooting a scene with camera, a photographic scene, you're going to shoot a master, some kind of a wide shot. And you're going to probably shoot some kind of a two shot or a closer shot that ties both actors in. And then you're going to shoot an over the shoulder. And then you're probably going to shoot either a tighter over or a tight single on this side of it. Then you're going to turn the lighting all around. You're going to come around over here and you're going to shoot the corresponding tight over and then probably a tight single. That's classic coverage. A lot of filmmakers don't like to do that because it's too classic, but it works. And there are reasons why it works and people still do it all the time. But let's just take that as an example because it is classic coverage. So that's 6 setups. Across those 6 setups, maybe you do 5 takes of each shot, just for the actors, just to figure out in the master what you're doing, figure out in the 2-shot the timing, figure out in the close-up the emotion, the moment that somebody's gonna cry or have some big reaction or whatever it is. The actors need time, they need to work their way to it. And so let's say 5 takes. So that's 6 setups times 5 takes. That's 30 times that the actors have to do it the same way so that you can cut it together. On the other hand, I think I did 7 takes of this scene and none of them were the same. But it didn't matter because for this scene, I'm going to show you something really interesting here. And this is the fundamental difference, I think, with the performance capture. All right, so we start in a fairly tight 2-shot. They're both barely in frame with each other, but it emphasizes the way he's trying to hold on to her and she's pushing him away. All right? Then we're going to cut to her close-up. All right? That's a separate setup, right? Then we're going to briefly be on that two shot again while she slams him away. Then we're going to continue with her in a slightly looser close-up. And then we're going to cut to his reaction as he tries to explain it. And then we're going to cut to a medium shot so that we could see her hand and her gesture as she pulls away. Again, I went wider here to suggest distance. She's already pulled away from him. We see a little bit of her mother. Mother tries to stop her. She pushes the mother away. Guess what? It's all from the same take. All those shots are from the same take, take 7. I happen to remember that because I was very happy when I realized that there was one take that had everything in it that I wanted. Where Sam was great, Zoe was great, everything was great. We had good reference coverage. So all of those shots were extracted from the same capture take. Now, we had done other takes. I didn't like them as well, and so I didn't want to shoot my virtual camera coverage from those takes. I did it all from that one take. We don't always do that, but it shows what's possible.